The moment the words left her lips, time seemed to stop. "You're fired." Natasha Blake stood in that cold boardroom with her designer suit and perfect smile, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. I could feel every eye in the room boring into me, my colleagues, the board members, everyone watching to see how I would react. My hands trembled as I held the termination letter she had thrown onto the table in front of me. The paper felt heavy, weighted with humiliation. I forced a smile, the kind you give when your world is falling apart, but you refuse to let anyone see the cracks. Nobody in that room knew the truth. Nobody knew that the woman standing above me, glowing with the power of her moment, did not own a single share of this company. I owned 75% of it. The secret had lived in my chest for so long that it felt like a second heartbeat, constant, hidden, powerful. My apartment felt like a prison that night. I paced back and forth, reading the termination letter over and over again. The words were brutal, calculated to sting, insubordination, lack of vision. Incompatible with company culture. Each phrase was a lie wrapped in corporate language. I had built this company from nothing. I had worked 18-hour days, skipped holidays, sacrificed relationships, all while keeping my majority stake hidden. The plan had always been to stay quiet, to watch, to wait for the right moment. But Natasha Blake had just destroyed that plan with 4 words. As I sat on my couch in the dark, something inside me shifted. The hurt was still there, burning like hot coals in my chest, but it was joined by something else: clarity, patience, a plan forming in the shadows of my mind. Natasha did not know what she had just done. She did not know that she had given me the only thing I needed, a reason to finally move. The corporate files were spread across my kitchen table like pieces of a puzzle. Shareholder agreements, stock certificates, financial records dating back years. I traced my name on each document, my 75% stake glowing in the light of my laptop. The company was worth millions now. The technology we had built was revolutionary. And I had protected it by staying invisible, by letting others take the spotlight, while I controlled everything from the shadows. What Natasha did not understand was that her husband, the CEO, was nothing without me. He was brilliant at presentation, excellent at talking to investors, but I was the one who had made the real decisions. I had guided the company's strategy, approved every major investment, shaped the vision. He was the face, I was the mind, and Natasha. She was just the wife who had married into power and decided she wanted to wield it. That was her fatal mistake. I spent the first week gathering evidence. I accessed the company systems legally, using my shareholder privileges, and documented everything. Natasha had made so many careless mistakes. She had sent emails approving marketing campaigns that violated regulatory standards. She had signed off on a vendor contract without proper due diligence. She had, without authorization, redirected company funds to her personal charity. Each mistake was a brick in the foundation of my case. I copied everything, time-stamped it all, created backups. No one at the office suspected anything. I still had access to every system. My security clearance had never been revoked. The company's lawyers had assured them they only needed to terminate my employment. Nobody had thought to check my shareholder status. By the second week, I had enough ammunition to sink her completely. But I was not ready yet. I needed to be smarter than that. I needed to let her hang herself with the rope I would provide. My old mentor, Kevin, sat across from me at a quiet coffee shop, his eyes wide with shock. He was retired now, a former CEO himself, and he was the only person I trusted with the truth. "You're going to destroy her," he said, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. "Yes," I replied calmly, "but I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it legally. I am going to do it so carefully that by the time anyone realizes what is happening, she will have already lost everything." Kevin leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Are you sure you want to go down this road?" he asked quietly. I did not hesitate. She gave me a choice. I can either disappear, or I can take back what is mine. I choose to take it back. We spent the next 3 hours planning. Kevin knew the corporate world better than anyone. He understood how boards think, how lawyers work, how public perception shapes outcomes. Together, we crafted a strategy that was surgical in its precision. The first move was subtle. I contacted a fellow board member, one who would always question Natasha's decisions during meetings. I sent him an anonymous tip about the regulatory violations in her marketing campaign. Within days, he had escalated the issue to the board's compliance committee. Natasha panicked. She sent emails trying to cover her tracks, trying to shift blame to others. I watched everything from my apartment, taking notes, documenting every lie. The second move came 2 weeks later. I reached out to a junior accountant at the company, someone who had always been kind to me, someone I knew was ambitious. I simply asked her, hypothetically, if she had ever noticed anything odd in the company's finances. Her answer was exactly what I expected. Actually, yes. I've always wondered about that charity transaction. I had not needed to push her further. The truth was already there, waiting to be found. Things began to shift inside the company. Natasha noticed that certain initiatives she wanted to push forward were suddenly blocked by technical issues or compliance concerns. She did not understand why. She complained to her husband, who became stressed and distracted. Their marriage began to show cracks. She grew paranoid, convinced that someone was working against her. And I was right there, watching it all unfold. I attended some company events now, on my own terms, as a shareholder exercising my right to participate in company matters. Each time, I would smile politely and ask innocent questions that highlighted her incompetence. How is that vendor relationship working out? The one without the standard contracts. Have the compliance issues been fully resolved? I never accused her of anything directly. I did not need to. The truth was starting to come out on its own. The turning point came when I found the smoking gun. It was a document buried deep in the company's financial system, a forged approval signature on a major investment decision. The signature was supposed to be mine, my approval as majority shareholder required for anything over a certain amount. But the signature was a fake. Natasha had forged my name to push through a terrible investment strategy. It was not just incompetence anymore, it was fraud. This was the moment I had been waiting for. This was the proof that would end everything. I made copies, I encrypted them, I prepared them for presentation. And then I waited for the right moment to strike. 3 months after my firing, the board called an emergency meeting. Apparently, some of my evidence had started to surface through official channels. Natasha had demanded this meeting to defend herself against accusations she claimed were false. She walked into that boardroom confident, wearing another one of her perfect suits, her smile sharp as a blade. The board members sat in their chairs, looking uncertain. They did not know what to believe yet. That was when I made my entrance. I had every right to be there as the majority shareholder. I carried with me a presentation deck and a folder full of documents. The room went silent when they saw me. Natasha's face went white. "You," she whispered. I did not respond. I simply opened my laptop and began to present. The first slide showed the regulatory violations. The second showed the unauthorized charity transfer. The third showed the personal business deals she had made using company resources. But it was the fourth slide that broke her. There, in clear digital format, was the forged approval. My signature, perfectly copied and pasted, used to approve an investment that had lost the company to $1 million. She tried to speak, tried to explain, but the board members were already exchanging glances. One of them spoke up. "You forged the shareholder's signature." Natasha's confidence crumbled. She tried to blame her assistant. She tried to claim I had done it myself to frame her, but nobody believed her anymore. The pattern was too clear. The evidence was too strong. What happened next was almost anticlimactic. Within a week, Natasha was forced to resign. The board began a formal investigation into her conduct. Potential criminal charges were discussed. Her lawyer advised her to take a settlement and disappear quietly. The company released a statement citing strategic differences and leadership transitions. Her husband, the CEO, was publicly humiliated when it became clear he had known nothing about his wife's activities. The board began to question his leadership as well. Pressure mounted for him to step down too. He eventually did, citing health concerns. And then, quietly and without fanfare, I was invited to take over as CEO. The board did not ask for forgiveness. They asked for my leadership. I accepted without hesitation. I sat in that same boardroom where Natasha had fired me, and I looked at the same faces that had watched my humiliation. None of them knew what my severance meant. They did not understand that I had planned every single moment of her downfall. I had studied her weaknesses, documented her crimes, and executed a strategy so perfect that she had destroyed herself with her own actions. I did not need to raise my voice or fight dirty. I simply presented the truth and let the truth do the work. The weeks that followed were about transformation. I implemented new systems, hired competent people, and began to rebuild the company in the image I had always envisioned. The team responded immediately. They were hungry for real leadership, for someone who actually cared about the work, not just the appearance of power. We began to grow faster than we ever had before. The investors took notice. The company's valuation climbed. And I did it all with a steady hand and a clear vision, never once gloating about Natasha's downfall. I saw her once, months later, at a restaurant. She was alone, a shadow of her former self. Her hair was different, her clothes no longer designer perfect. She looked older, broken. When our eyes met across the dining room, I saw the moment she understood the truth. She realized that I had won not through revenge in the traditional sense, but through patience, intelligence, and an absolute refusal to compromise my principles for immediate satisfaction. I did not smile. I did not acknowledge her. I simply turned back to my meal and continued living my life. That was the real victory, not her destruction, but my freedom from needing her destruction to define me. Years later, I would think back on that moment in the boardroom when she fired me. Some people would say I'd been cruel, that I should have revealed the truth sooner or handled it differently. But they did not understand what she had done. She had not just fired an employee. She had disrespected, humiliated, and betrayed someone who had built everything. And she had done it with the confidence of someone who did not realize that the person she was disrespecting was the one actually holding all the power. The lesson was simple, elegant, and true. The most dangerous person in any room is not the loudest or the angriest. It is the quiet one, the one who is smart enough to wait. The one who understands that real power does not announce itself. It operates silently, strategically, and with absolute precision. And when the time comes, it strikes with the force of inevitability. My reflection in the office window showed a woman who had won, but not through cruelty. I had won through intelligence, patience, and an unshakable belief in the truth. Natasha Blake thought she had destroyed me when she fired me. Instead, she had simply activated the person I was always meant to become. The silent shareholder who owned the building while everyone else argued about the furniture. The quiet observer who knew every secret and every weakness. The one who could afford to wait because she had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And now, as I looked out at the company I had built, the employees who respected me, the business that was thriving under my leadership, I finally understood the sweetest truth of all. The best revenge is not destruction, it is success. But the story does not end there. 3 years into my tenure as CEO, the company had transformed into something far greater than anyone had imagined. We had expanded into 5 new markets. Our product had won 3 major industry awards. The team I built was envied across the entire sector. One day, I received a letter forwarded through our legal department. It was from Natasha. She was writing from a small town in the Midwest, where she had moved to start over. She apologized for everything, her arrogance, her crimes, her cruelty. She said watching my success from a distance had taught her more about character and integrity than any lecture ever could. But I did not respond. Some bridges, once burned, should remain burned. Her redemption was not my responsibility. It is building something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. It is becoming so powerful, so competent, and so admirable that your enemy's attempts to destroy you become the very catalyst for your greatest achievements. That was my revenge. That was my victory. And unlike Natasha's brief moment of false power, mine would last forever. My responsibility was to myself, to my team, and to building a legacy that would outlast us all. And that is exactly what I did. Every day I walked into that building knowing that I had won completely, not just in business, but in spirit. The girl who was fired was now the woman who could never be fired. The girl who was humiliated had become the woman who inspired respect. And that transformation was worth every moment of patience, every calculated move, every silent night planning justice. I had learned the ultimate truth: real power never needs to shout. It simply exists, immovable and eternal.